Imagine you walk back home on a very late night. The cool spring breeze so gently caresses your skin. You've just had a very tiring, yet joyful workday. You smile when thinking about tomorrow's plans. You turn a corner on a known street. Then, from the subconscious, you feel a murderous aura, a murky gaze, sharp cold stabbing into your neck from behind. You turn around, no one is there. Just the wind whistling through the gaps of big concrete buildings. You breathe out with relief, mocking your own paranoia.
You keep on walking, but you have no clue that behind that wall, the monster is holding its breath. It is smiling, a twisted smile, so hungry and bloodied. In the spring of 2007, in the world's most bustling city of Tokyo, a 22-year-old young British woman named Lindsay Hawker experienced exactly that very chilling feeling. She had no clue that the instant she turned to see the dark shadow tailing her, the countdown timer for her life had been officially just triggered. A suffocating chase, a trap so perfect, a crime scene so brutal that even the most hardened police officers vomited their own guts. A flight of sick self-mortification, the most pathological in Japan's crime. Today, lock your room door tight, pull your curtains shut, and don't look behind you. Let's go down to the very deepest floor of our own mind's hell. We will explore the rotten mind of Tatsuya Ichihashi, the murderer who used a knife to slice off flesh and face to flee justice. Tokyo, a huge supercity of 35 million lives in dense overlap. It is a strange intersection between past and future. The 1,000-year-old silent temples nestle next to the skyscrapers made of glass and steel. They call Tokyo the city not sleeping. But perhaps the scariest thing about a sleepless city is when you close your eyes, the monsters stay awake. Tokyo's crowdedness gives a scary paradox: blank anonymity. You can rub shoulders with thousands each day at Shibuya Crossing, but not a single one will know who you are, and no one cares where you came from. And if you suddenly vanish, this city will keep on spinning like a mindless machine, utterly unmoved. In October 2006, the 22-year-old girl, Lindsay Hawker, stepped into that huge, giant machine. Lindsay was born and raised in a peaceful village near Coventry, Warwickshire, England. She was the brightest flower in her family, graduating with first-class honors in biology from Leeds University. Lindsay carried within her a heart hungry to explore, an open soul, and a fierce belief in the goodness of people. She decided to pack her very own bag, leave her family's protective arms to go to Tokyo, start at Nova, the biggest private language school system in Japan back then. She planned to work here for just 1 year, experience Eastern culture, before joining her longtime boyfriend Ryan Garside to continue their world tour. Lindsay loves Tokyo. She truly loves the noise, strange foods, and polite folks who always bow when they meet each other. She adapts quickly. She shares a small flat with 2 other young girls in Edogawa Ward. Each day, she always bikes to work, carrying a bag with Nova School's logo. Her radiant smile lights up the whole classroom. In all emails home, Lindsay's excitement she just couldn't hide. There was one line in an email that later turned into a cruel knife, slashing her family's heart. She wrote, "Mom and Dad, don't fret. Tokyo's very safe. This place is safer than England. I feel that I'm protected. Unfortunately, that safety was just a mere thin sugarcoating. It hid the decaying cracks of a high-stress society where distorted personalities are all born." Lindsay's innocence and goodness are the very light that attracts those insects who love the dark. And among millions of glances that pass her on streets, one glance came to a stop. It not only looked at her, it locked onto her. It dissected her. It longed for her with a greasy, cruel lust. On May 20th, 2007, 6 days before the tragedy fell, Lindsay was heading home after an evening having drinks with her colleagues. The night train was sparse with people. Fluorescent lights blinked, throwing long, bent shadows on the cold floor. Lindsay dozes off, tired but relaxed. And then he appears. Tatsuya Ichihashi, age 28. Let's pause a moment to gaze deep at this man. Tatsuya is not a homeless, destitute wretch.
nor a man whose own poverty breeds theft. On the contrary, he hails from a noble family in Chiba. His father is a distinguished neurosurgeon. His mother's a dentist. They're rich and mighty, and they place huge expectations on their son.
But Tatsuya didn't inherit his parents' intelligence or ambition. He graduated from university with a degree in horticulture, but never worked. He languished on his family's generous monthly allowance. Tatsuya embodies a disturbing social phenomenon in Japan: hikikomori, individuals who isolate themselves in their rooms, cutting off all contact with the outside world. He lives alone in a large 3-bedroom condo. His mind is starved of human connection, yet stuffed with violent fantasies from the whole very dark manga series. He is obsessed with lifting weights, grinds out 15 miles each day on his bike to keep a ripped physique, a machine of muscle, but inside is a very hollow, rotting soul. What is more, Tatsuya is a slow-burning bomb. 2 years ago, he beat and robbed a woman on the street, but his family paid money to settle it all outside of court. He had been warned for stalking before. The evil in him had grown long back, only waiting to bear bloody fruit. And that night, on the fateful train, the beast caught the scent of its own prey. He spots the Nova School logo on Lindsay's tote bag and thinks up a whole plot. He steps closer with a calm that sends chills. He starts talking, claims he's one of her own students. Now try to put yourself in Lindsay's shoes. You're in a foreign land, and a man much bigger than you keeps insisting he knows you.
Lindsay declines gently. She says she knows each single of her students, and he is not in that group. She's uncomfortable. She stands, then walks toward the train car door as it stops at the station. She steps down to the platform, freezing cold Tokyo night air, then heads to her bike, and then she hears that sound, the sound of footsteps. Clop, clop, behind her back.
She turns left. His steps turn left. She speeds on her bike. The running noise still echoes behind. He is chasing her. A strange man is wildly running after her in the dark night. Panic squeezes Lindsay's ribcage so tight. She lunges to her front door. Shaking hands fumble with key, but when the door just cracks half open, an ice-cold hand blocks it back. He stands there, looming on her doorstep. His breath is heavy. Sweat is dripping. His eyes stare at her, unblinking, with a strange, ghostly glow. He repeats his old refrain: need English, to go study abroad. He says sorry for scaring her. And then he makes a small, odd, confusing request. Could you give me a glass of water? Her kind and gentle character, along with perhaps the naive thought that her 2 roommates staying inside would keep her safe, made Lindsay nod. She let the evil devil step through her front door. Stepping inside, the monster was not in haste. He sat down on a chair, pulled out paper and pen from his pocket. He starts to draw. He draws a portrait of Lindsay. The air in the room grows thick, so stifling, hard to breathe. Both roommates stare at him with uneasy eyes, sensing a really bad thing. When the drawing is done, he leaves it on the table, signs T. Ichihashi with his own phone number and email. That is not any icebreaker gift. That is marking territory. He steps out the door, vanishes into the dark night, but his ghost has always clung to this place. The roommate of Lindsay had then warned her. They said that guy's not normal. His eyes hold a hidden madness. Never, ever contact him. But Lindsay, with her blindly trusting Japan's safety and a teacher's own burning zeal, then just simply ignored that warning. On May 20th, she posted her last, final Facebook status. Love you all so much. Don't you fret about the madman who followed me home. Just sometimes Japan is very weird. Miss you all. One early, gloomy Sunday morning, May 25th, 2007, Lindsay took her teaching bag and cycled to a Dotor cafe near the station to then teach just Tatsuya English. This is the most costly English lesson, paid for with blood and life. Let's review the coffee shop's security camera tape from that day. The grainy, blurry, grayish film. In the corner, Lindsay sits opposite Tatsuya. Her tension shows clearly in each move she makes. She touches hair, crosses legs, then fakes a slight grin. Her eyes keep darting around. She detects the oddness, the oppressive heat from the man sitting opposing. But out of politeness, she still stayed the full 50. And then, the predator's act began to shift to last scene. When it came to pay, Tatsuya started fumbling through all his pockets. He grimaced, acting clumsy play that he'd forgotten his wallet. He invited Lindsay to take a taxi with him to his place in Ichikawa, about 5 minutes' drive, so he could get her money back. The offer seemed to be so harmless. Just 5 minutes. The taxi door would open, he'd run up to get money to give her, then done. At 10 in the morning, they both got in a taxi. The taxi door slammed shut. That sound was dry and cold. It was the hammer's strike nailing shut a lid of Lindsay Hawker's coffin. The taxi stopped before Tatsuya's apartment. Lindsay kept a tiny last alertness. She bade the driver to wait in the hall. She followed Tatsuya's back, entered the lift, then rose to floor 4. The cabbie sat in his car, turned on the radio, checked his watch. A minute passed. 2 ticks. 3 ticks. 7 ticks passed. The apartment's silence made him feel so impatient. The blonde girl's silhouette did not appear. Finally, unable to wait more, the driver turned the key, stepped on gas, and drove off. Then the taxi rolled away. The final light of Lindsay's hope was all left behind now. Finally, all around her now were just 4 soundproof concrete walls, a door locked so tight with many bolts, and a vicious beast slowly peeling away its human mask right before her. No one will ever know what her final words were. Then no one could hear her loud, heart-wrenching scream echo in that filthy apartment. Death begins to cast a thick black shadow over that small life. When Lindsay missed 2 straight days of teaching at school, on May 26th, her roommate frantically called the police. But the complexities of Japanese law indirectly created a deadly gap. Only at 5:20 p.m. on the 26th, 2 officers arrived before Tatsuya's apartment. They knocked, but by law were not allowed to break in without a search warrant or clear evidence of crime. They stood there, calling backup. 9 cops surrounded the outside zone, blocking each alley down on ground floor. They knew the brute inside had a record. They stood still, breath held. Around 8 p.m., suddenly the apartment door burst. Tatsuya Ichihashi shot out like a cannonball. He lugged a tiny backpack, his feet without any shoes. With the primal instinct of a wild beast cornered against a wall, he wriggled past the cops. He dashed down the fire escape. Cops chased close behind, loudly yelling at him to stop. But Tatsuya, with the strong stature of a workout-obsessed man, leapt over the final steps, landed just perfect, and shot straight into all Tokyo's streets. He runs in zigzag, slipping through alleys so narrow. Night's darkness opens its arms to welcome the devil's child. In just a blink, he vanished from the law's pursuit, beginning the most insane escape in all history. But what he left behind in that 4th-floor apartment is what gives people nightmares for a lifetime. The police stepped in the apartment. A distinctive foul stench rushed straight to nose. Damp earth smell, fertilizer smell, and blood. Belongings were strewn about. Clothes and Lindsay's purse lay all tumbled on the floor. Signs of a horrific struggle were there all around, but no victim could be seen. A cop's flashlight beam swept right toward the balcony outside. The hairs on his arm stood on end. Out on the balcony, a white plastic bathtub, which should have been in the bathroom, had then been dragged out. Its great heaviness made very deep, raw gouges in the floor. Neighbors later recalled that the night before, they heard a metallic scraping screech against the floor. A gruesome sound dragged on all the night. That bathtub was filled with a mushy black mixture, plant soil, sand, and various very strong cleaning solutions to fool the sniffer dog's sense of smell. Tatsuya tried to make a biological grave mound right in mid-air. He planned to bury and decompose the victim's body on his balcony, but couldn't finish that deadly grave from police knocking at the door. Dirt hasn't filled bin. A flashlight beam strikes a thing rising up from the black, muddy slime. A very tiny, pale, stiff, dead hand bursts up out from the earth. It rises into the air, fingers slightly curled, as if trying to claw at nothingness, like a last cry for help to the world. That vision hit the police officers' eyes, freezing all of their senses. The evil appears too real, too savage. When the coroner exhumed the bathtub body, the portrait of Lindsay Hawker's last moments was slowly all stitched up. It is a bloody indictment. Lindsay was stripped of her clothes. Her body was curled up in a fetal pose. Her 2 hands and 2 legs were tied back tightly by ropes that were fastened hard. Her mouth was sealed up tightly by a neck scarf. She was locked up, unable to scream. Massive bruises the size of eggs cover up all the left half of her face. Her body is full of scratches and bruises from hitting the hard furniture. She resisted. She fought with all the strength of her own survival instinct. But a poor girl cannot resist all the power of a crazed young man. He had beaten her, tortured her with furious punches. Cause of death? Suffocation due to strangling. Tatsuya strangled her with a horrific and brutal force that all the cartilage in her windpipe was crushed. He looked straight into her eyes, watching the life very slowly leave those gorgeous blue pupils. And the twisted sickness of a hikikomori didn't stop at just murder. If it's just murder, that is a crime. But what he did next is the utmost despicable insult to the victim's dignity. He took a trimmer, then shaved off all of Lindsay's beautiful golden hair. He gathered the fallen strands, carefully put them into a plastic bag, and placed it in his room. He wanted to strip her identity, take her beauty away. Then, at 3 a.m. on May the 27th, in England, thousands of miles away, the phone rang in the Hawker family home. The announcement from the police tore apart their whole sky.
Bill Hawker, Lindsay's father, with her boyfriend, had to hastily board a Tokyo flight. Not to come visit her as planned, but to enter the cold morgue room. When the white sheet was pulled down, the father collapsed.
His daughter's deformed face made him unable to recognize her fast. He knew it was his from the familiar, tall, thin form. "My soul has fallen from my body, shattered on the floor," he said in a stream of dry tears. Fury erupts, engulfing all Japan. A massive manhunt, unprecedented in modern history, is launched. Over 140 seasoned detectives are mobilized. 30,000 wanted posters with his sharp face, monolids, and 2 distinct moles on Tatsuya's left cheek are pasted all over the train stations, electric poles, and bus stops nationwide. The bounty for his head is raised up from 1 to 10 million yen. Police even made cardboard dummy figures placed at public places everywhere. Tatsuya's family on TV, crying tears, begged their son to surrender. Thousands of tip calls from citizens poured in. People saw him in Kabukicho, at train stations, in mountains, but all of them are dead ends. He vanished like a dust speck. A rumor says he fled overseas. Some say he hanged himself in a lonely, desolate forest somewhere. Even some sketches predicted that he dressed as a woman to flee. But the truth about Tatsuya Ichihashi's hiding place is the most gruesome and disgusting chapter of this tale. It reveals a beastly survival instinct of the murderer. Tatsuya did not flee so far. He blended into homeless people's underworld. He burrowed into slums, slept in parks, picked through the garbage to eat. He kept moving between cities by bike and walking, dodging every security cam. The paranoia and extreme fear of being captured turned him into a cornered beast, ready to tear away his own flesh to survive. Prepare your psyche. Your imagination's about to work at peak intensity, and it won't be pleasant at all. Seeing his own face on wanted posters plastered on every single street, Tatsuya panicked. He realizes his deadly identifying features are 2 quite large moles on left cheek and somewhat thick lips. He must erase them. If he cannot go to a hospital, he will be his own surgeon. He sneaks into a foul-reeking public toilet. He locks the door. Flickering tube light casts his pale shadow on grimy mirror. In his hand, a little rusty metal paper cutter and some paper scissors he just bought at a convenience store. No local, no alcohol, no medical gauze, nothing but madness. He stares at the mole on his cheek, sweat streaming down so heavily. He clenches his teeth, brings the sharp blade's edge right to his skin, and he cuts. He carves the live moles off his own cheek. Hot red blood gushes out, fishy, streaming down his collar. The bone-deep, brain-sharp pain hits, but he bites his lip, swallows the scream down deep so none outside can hear. He takes filthy toilet paper, packs the wound to stop blood. But that's not enough. He looks down at his lips. He has to make them thinner. He drops the knife, picks up the scissors. A paper scissors. He opens mouth, clamps lower lip with cold scissors edge. He shuts his eyes tight, and he snips. For the very first time, the horrifying pain, surpassing any human's tolerance, caused him to let go of the scissors, blood flooding his oral cavity. He collapsed onto the toilet seat, gasping, his whole body shaking from heat shock and deep pain. Yet the craving for freedom of a demon inside him proved the stronger. A few days later, he comes back, again takes up the scissors to cut and trim his own lips until they become very thin, tattered, and completely deformed. His madness hasn't stopped. He wants to change his nose's shape. He buys a needle and thread, stands before glass. He pierces through his nose cartilage and extra flesh with a needle, then ties knots and pulls the nostrils together to narrow the bridge, piercing raw, live flesh without any numbing. He turns himself into Frankenstein's monster, patched together with blood and extreme agony. For months, he moves about with swollen, infected, festering face, concealed under very many medical masks and black-framed glasses. He takes a dead man's false name, drifts to Osaka, and asks for a laborer job at a construction site. For 13 months working here, his colleagues describe him as a freak, very silent as a dead man. He lives in a squalid dorm, always wears a cap pulled down his face, never takes off his glasses and mask. Even when eating with others, he still keeps up that same disguise. He grits his teeth, works like a machine, just to save about 1 million yen. That money he doesn't spend on fleeing, but on professional plastic surgeries at underground clinics to fully erase traces of former Tatsuya Ichihashi. He performs nose jobs himself, makes his nasal bridge higher, and cuts his eyelids to turn his cold, single-lidded eyes into double lids. When the surgery is complete, he looks into the mirror. A completely unfamiliar face stares back at him. He smiles. He thought he had shed his skin for good, that evil had beaten justice. But he was wrong. The flawless surgeries had finally betrayed him. In late October 2009, Tatsuya went to Nagoya Cosmetic Clinic for a nose lift. But the doctors here were not the type so easily fooled. When checking his face, they were shocked to find strange, rugged scars on cheek and lip. Not accident scars, traces of self-mutilation. This deformity plus facial traits woke their instinct of suspicion. They secretly shot him and sent it to police. On November 4th, 2009, police released the new post-surgery images of Tatsuya Ichihashi across all national media. At that time, Tatsuya sat in his room. Then, the TV screen lit up, hitting straight his face with the image of his own fresh face and words, "Murderer, wanted." In his later memoir, he wrote, "My heart felt like it stopped. My blood froze up solid. I stared at the screen, my whole body trembling like a reed." He found this mask of flesh and blood was already torn off too. Panicking wildly, he grabbed his stuff, cut his hair short, bought a fake beard and dark glasses to hide. He sped straight to Osaka's ferry port, planning to take a train to flee to remote Okinawa at Japan's south tip. But on November 10th, 2009, 961 days since he strangled Lindsay Hawker, fate called his name. At the ferry terminal, a resident noticed a lanky young man in a cap, sunglasses, and mask lurking, extremely suspicious. This man called police at once. As officers burst in and put on cuffs, old wild beast from years back did still not fight. He dropped both arms. His blank, empty stare gazed into the void. The demon was snared. Do you think that the story ends right here then? You think evil is punished, justice is done, and people can all sleep soundly? No. The horror, the disgust of this case isn't just about how he killed, nor even about how he mutilated himself. It is society's reaction after he's caught. A sick social psych phenomenon never before seen burst out on Japan's internet. When Tatsuya's arrest photos at the ferry dock were out, thousands, tens of thousands, mostly young girls, became very crazy for him. Yes, you didn't mishear. They're mad for a rapist, torturer, killer who hid body in manure bath. Fan clubs and forums grew up quickly, like mushrooms, to praise Tatsuya. They call him the very sad runaway prince, Lord of Ichihashi. They write poems, draw pictures, express infatuation with his very cold masculine looks, quite sharp jawline, and messy romantic hair. They argue so crazily that he's 180 tall, has a fit body, a doctor's son, knows painting, good at English. He's so very charming. Even many girls express desire to marry him, ready to offer their bodies to him. This so sick obsession is called the hybristophilia syndrome. Syndrome of sexual attraction to evil criminals. That is one more very cruel stab deep into the bleeding heart of the family of Lindsay Hawker. A young girl's soul is taken as entertainment, is crushed to give way to the cult of demon who has a cosmetic surgery face. The very audacity of Devil peaked when Tatsuya, from his solitary cell, wrote a memoir called Until I Am Arrested. In this book, full of hypocrisy, he details the escape, the very pains when he self-shaved his face, cut his lip, but never, not one single line, does he confess the raw truth of the brutal torture blows he hit on the very tiny girl in the fourth-floor apartment. He claims he killed her just by accident when trying to gag her mouth to stop her scream. Disgustingly, the killer's own memoir became Japan's #1 bestseller. Royalties, huge profits poured into his pocket. Moreover, his escape story was even adapted into a popular movie in 2013 named I Am Ichihashi, Journal of a Murderer. A blind section of society cheers as the evil profits from innocent victims' corpses. On July 21st, 2011, at Chiba District Court, Lindsay Hawker's family sat, eyes drained of tears, holding their daughter's smiling photo. They pleaded for a death sentence. They want the murderer dead now. But Tatsuya's lawyers pulled a dirty trick. They used that best-selling memoir as evidence to show he had repented, saw his wrongs, and still has power to also reform and rejoin society. Sometimes the law is too kind to demon beasts. The judge said no to a death sentence. Tatsuya Ichihashi given life in prison. He escaped death. He still can breathe, eat, and drink. Read the sick love letters from his fans inside all the four walls of prison. And Lindsay Hawker, she lies still forever, age 22. Her round-the-world dream is forever left undone. Her boyfriend, Ryan Garside, choked out through his tears. She was the best thing that ever happened in my life. I was going to propose to her. This loss is a giant black hole that can never be filled. The story of Tatsuya Ichihashi ends, but its ghost still lingers, even around here. This case is not just a bloody criminal record sheet. It is a cracked mirror reflecting the darkest, most horrid parts of human ego. It reminds us of the twisting of socially isolated, of the extreme of survival instinct, when the evil one willingly cuts flesh. And more frightening, it shows moral decay of some people who willingly worship a demon just for its own glamorous outer look. This world is not as safe as you imagine. Demons don't crawl up from below. They are born and grow up right with us. Tonight, when you lie down in bed and turn off the light, make sure you have locked every door tight. And if tomorrow on the train, a stranger comes near, smiles, and asks you for a glass of cold, fresh water, run away. Don't look back.